the bot is pretty confidently going to be better than your intuitive assessment. So your unresearched assessment, you press the button, it's going to be better than you.
Hello. I have a real treat for you today. Ben Wilson is a skilled maker of AI bots, and he is an employee at Metaculus. He's also built a library which makes it easier for people to build prediction bots in general. Hope you enjoy. Yes, so obviously people have been building like special purpose prediction bots for a very long time. There's nothing new about that. But the idea of building a real like general purpose thing that can predict anything using LLMs is obviously as new as LLMs. And it's very much in its infancy. What is your sense about how the top bots are doing? Like, are they good? Are they getting to the point where they're as good as people? How much better do you think they can get? What's your sense of that?
Well, I can definitely talk on the results from quarter three. Some of the results of quarter four are still to be analyzed. So I don't want to talk too strongly there yet. But I guess for reference, Metaculus has been running a tournament for starting in quarter three of this year, having LLM-powered forecasting bots compete to see which AIs are or which competitors are able to actually create human competitive bots. And in quarter three, we benchmarked against a number of our pro forecasters. And though bots were better than random chance, they were not yet as good as our pro forecasters. And so at the moment, we're kind of in, hey, they're better than any average person you'll find off the street, because most average people are about as good as flipping a coin for complex questions, but also not as good as the well-practiced forecasters. So we'll see where that lies in quarter four. And we're kind of getting a sense that
Yeah, so I did notice that the scores, like the peer scores, the top bots are like really like pushing at this quarter, quarter four, 2024. They seem to be making improvements, and I love the fact that people kind of chat with each other and they're learning from each other, and there's like a real sense of sharing. Obviously that people keep their proprietary stuff, but people are learning from each other, and the bots seem to be getting better. Um, I noticed that a lot of the top bots are using they're checking the prediction markets to see what's going on there, which is maybe not the best way to test whether or not an LLM can make a good prediction, but they certainly are they're really like honing in on the correct answers to these questions, even on tough questions, I'm finding.
And there's definitely cases where they get things quite wrong. It's been fun to kind of go back through like the worst scoring questions, and I'm like, why did you even think that? But
Oh,
like,
there were a
there's
few that killed
I'm like,
us. Yeah, there were a few that absolutely killed us this year. So for people watching on YouTube, there was one question this last quarter that asked how many emojis there will be in the world at the end of 2024. And of course, the number of emojis, it's not a very important question, but it's an interesting test of an LLM because they go up over time, and it looks like there's a linear trend, but actually what happens is that they come out with a new batch every year at a certain time. And without checking when exactly that time was that they came out, the bot just got it completely wrong. So were there any of the stinkers that really got you this last quarter?
actually, I haven't had a bunch of time to go deeply into this quarter, but from brief overview, one of the questions that stuck out was last quarter and this quarter, my bot really sucked at questions related to the Waltons and their net worth.
Right.
And the one of my worst scoring questions for both quarters was whether the net worth of Waltons would be above a certain amount.
Right.
And it said no this quarter, or last quarter, and it said yes this quarter, or no, actually, it said yes last quarter and said no this quarter, and it just messed both of those up.
Do you have a sense for how it made that decision and like where it went wrong?
And that's what I haven't had time to dive
Yeah.
into yet. Just briefly looking at the top worst scores and waiting for everything to finish
Right.
resolving before doing a deeper analysis.
I wonder if it was similar. There was a question about which company will have the top market cap in the world, and the companies in question were flip-flopping back and forth almost on a daily basis around the time that the question was asked. So I wonder if it's something like that, where because there isn't any particular trend that you can spot, and things are flipping back and forth, maybe it's just not able to kind of figure it out. Um,
Mhm.
the other one, and this kind of segues into the next thing I wanted to talk about, is the reliance of these bots on external news, and the quality of the news, and how well it does when there isn't any news about a particular topic, how well it does when there is news and it's inaccurate, or it's very, highly slanted in a particular way. Um, are there things that you're doing to sort of manage that?
And um, because there have been a few questions which earlier in the quarter I was taking a look at where it scored worse. That like in order to resolve the question, it really needed to see like a very specific web page and have like a screenshot of the page, for
Yeah.
instance. Because like and like the search for method that I was using was like, hey, let's just do kind of a general search and grab the text of those websites.
Right.
Um, and so my bot did quite poorly on those questions just because it didn't have the data it needed. It didn't know that
Yeah.
Kalshi was already ranked like super highly in the app list. And so it just didn't have that context in order to kind of estimate where Kalshi will be ranked.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, it's just for context
so,
for YouTubers. The so the news that comes in, obviously these bots don't have training that's up to date. They, in the case of OpenAI, they usually release a new training set every year or 6 months or something like that. And if you ask questions about current events from these LLMs, they'll tell you, well, as of my last training date, and it's usually like a year ago, this is the information that I had at that time. But then if you're asking about a current event, that's not very useful if it's, the most recent thing that the bot knows about is from a year ago. So what the people who make prediction bots usually do is they try and find news sources on the internet, and then pass as much of that information into the bot, yeah, through the prompt as possible, just to kind of give the LLMs a bit of context about what's going on. Um, what I was finding though is that because LLMs are designed to riff off of what you give them, their text completion. So you tell them something in a particular style, and it's going to want to do things in that style. They're supremely sensitive to the tone of the news. So you send in a piece of news that's very positive or very negative on a story. It completely slants how the bot's predictions come out. Do you find the same thing?
and I have not picked up problems with that. And there's a lot of areas I just haven't had time to go and analyze deeper. So
Yeah.
it's very possible there's a bias there. But usually, at least the way I'm doing search, I'm using exa.ai. It allows me to grab highlights from like a bunch of sources. So it just grabs individual paragraphs
Right.
from essentially a Google search. And my guess would be to some degree that evens out because, hey, there's one positive, or like, because I ask it to summarize all those highlights, all those paragraphs to answer a question.
Right.
Um, and so there will be multiple sources within the summarization prompt. So that chance of bias is probably lower, but I don't know.
Yeah, I guess we probably got it, worse because we use various news aggregators. So they're, it's there's a bias in the sense of which news sources are they putting into their feed, and the quality of that, and things of that nature. But so what we did was we went to some crazy lengths to try and debias the sources. So we basically first pull in everything, create a huge essay essentially out of the contents of whatever sources it finds, and then I ask the LLM to summarize it into a paragraph length. Well, I say 1 to 3 paragraphs, but usually it comes up as a long paragraph. And then I ask it to go through and pick every fact in the like factual statement in the summary, and rank those for whether they're relevant and both internal and external consistency. Now, of course, it can't do a good job of external consistency, but it's actually pretty good with internal consistency. And then I take the ones that are both consistent and relevant and create a new summary, which I then pass along to the prediction bots. So it's a bit of a process, but it seems to partially help. I mean, it doesn't help with things that there's not that much news about, or the news that is out of date, or everything that comes up is propaganda or whatever. But it helps a little bit. Yes. So there's something that I think you wanted to talk about, which is Metaculus is the competitions run for a long time, so it runs for about 3 months, and it features hundreds of questions. And there's a real temptation as the bot gets scored, and we do better and worse on particular questions, particularly on the ones we do worse on. There's that temptation to constantly fiddle with the bot, and change the prompting up, and the like. So how do we know at the time that we're doing this that we're not making things worse and not better? Do you have any sense of like the calibration of these things over time, and whether or not the things that we do today are making it worse or better in the future?
Yeah, because my hypothesis is that over time, the best bots will be those that can um, like run the as more iterations than other bots, just like changes, and be able to benchmark them well.
Right.
Because there's or a former coworker of mine did some interesting analysis, just comparing, hey, what's the chance of a perfect forecaster
Right.
versus like a noisy forecaster? If they were to be ranked on 30 questions versus 100 questions versus 500 questions, what's the chance that the noisy forecaster would beat the
Right.
perfect forecaster? And it's only until you get, or like, um, when the forecaster skill levels are close to each other, you need something like 100 plus questions to actually get a sense of, or like a decent chance
Right.
that there isn't a false positive. But even like with 100 questions with close skill levels, it becomes like 30-20% chance that you get a false positive. And so I just become very skeptical of like whenever I'm taking a look at like one individual question, it's like that's wrong.
Right.
But what's the chance that that was just like lucky? It's like how much can you get
And
from
if
anecdotal?
I change things to try and get it better on this question, am I making it worse on every other question, and the like?
Exactly.
I've noticed that Metaculus has calibration charts. I'm gonna actually throw some images of this up on the screen afterwards if I remember. Um, but there's a typical calibration pattern that most of the bots have, where they do really well with questions that have a low likelihood of being true. So if a question is almost certainly going to be false, like will the sky suddenly turn green, whatever, it's got to be false, right? So the bots seem to do really well, and are highly calibrated for those. But then as you reach the higher scores, that kind of fall out of that calibration chart, and it sort of slopes downwards. um, but there's a few bots, and they've all remarkably done like really well this past quarter, and their calibration just pushes out much further. Like it goes up past like 80, 90%. It's like staying within that calibration pattern. And I noticed that even earlier on in the competition with those particular ones, and even though they weren't doing so well earlier on, I was like, maybe they just got a string of bad luck with some of these questions. I'm convinced that they're going to do better later on, and they actually did. But I really wish I could figure out how to how to get our bot to calibrate better along those lines.
Yeah,
um,
and I have a lot of things I want to try on my bot just to like help improve calibration.
right.
I'm hoping to try to fine tune on historical Metaculus bot or questions to like ideally to get like a hey, on average a question even without research, what would be like the calibrated answer here?
Right.
Um,
Exactly.
but it's definitely interesting.
There's something that Ben has built that I think will be of interest to a lot of people out there that are perhaps interested in building AI bots and LLM-based prediction bots. Do you want to talk a little bit about this library that you've built?
Yeah, sure. So I've been working on a open source Python package that acts or helps with a number of different forecasting things. So I've just kind of been putting all my bot code in there, which is kind of the main thing. But also a number of experiments just with like base rate researchers, key factor researchers. But probably what would be most useful to people um, are just some of the utilities in there, such as a benchmarking tool that can take in a bot and run it on all of the open questions currently on Metaculus and pass back an expected log score. Because it takes a really long time to get a feedback loop during a
Right.
regular quarter because you have to start and wait till the end of the quarter. Um,
Yeah, months.
but with but you can benchmark against the community prediction a lot faster. So, like at any point in time, you can be like, "Hey, assuming the community prediction on the tax list is the correct answer, you can use expected log scores to compare against that, um,
Right.
get a sense of how good your bot is." Um, so that's one of the
Just
cool
to add,
features.
is that the community broad scores across hundreds of forecasters on Metaculus is really good. Like it's about as good of a prediction as anything out there. So yeah, so to be able to benchmark against that is a strong positive.
And because the community prediction has been in like the 99th percentile of accuracy on the site. You can actually go look at the leaderboards and see where the community prediction is. It's always up in like the top 10,
Yeah.
which is pretty cool. Um, but yeah, otherwise, there's just templates for people if they want, if you are interested in joining the Metaculus tournament. There's a template there just to copy the repository and be able to make your own bot, or even um, use the package as a framework for
Something
to take
else.
care of all the boilerplate and API crap. Yeah.
Right. Are there things you're going to add to it in the future, or it's pretty stable now?
Yeah, definitely an experimental phase. Plan to add lots of future items to it, um, such as adding optimized prompts based on historical data is one of the next things I'm working on.
Right.
Using DSPY to help automate prompt iterations. Um, and then anything I'm adding to my bot is going to be in that repository so other people can benefit.
Right. I'll throw up links to your bot below so that people can take a look at that. It'll be in the video description. To segue to probably our last segment, the 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 question really is why people should be so excited about these bots. A lot of AI experts are saying 2025 is going to be the year of the AI agent. The idea that we're moving beyond just having an LLM that you interact with in a chat to having these things that have logic to them that do things on behalf of people. And the idea of having a prediction bot, it's not going to tell your future, or it's not going to be like an oracle or something like that, but maybe, just maybe, it provides a basis for better decision making. You can say, like, will this particular stock do something in a particular time frame, or what is the likelihood that the economy will do such and such, or that such and such will happen politically around the world. Maybe we get to the point where this kind of aids in helping people make better decisions through having some sort of baseline prediction. What's your sense of that? Like, do you use it personally at all, or you just focused on the Metaculus competition?
And I've used it a couple times in personal choices. For instance, with a local ballot, I was in like there was just a lot of different measures. Like I spent a few times on the ones I cared about, researching deeply, and like
Right.
I just didn't have enough time to dive deeply into some of these other ones.
Yeah,
So I'm like,
that's the
hey,
thing about it. Like, even if it's completely wrong, even if the prediction that it produces is totally off and wrong, what it does do it does the hard work of researching potentially a large number of questions, and producing summaries for them that allow you to make a good decision yourself, plus a base case. Like, even if the base case is wrong, like, you have something to work off of. You're not just starting from nowhere.
which was huge,
Yeah.
especially so like, and on top of that, like if you're gonna right now, the bot is pretty confidently going to be better than your intuitive assessment. So
Right.
your unresearched assessment, you press a button, it's going to be better than you.
Yeah.
And so if you don't have time to research something, you can press the button, kind of get an assessment, and be like, okay, that's a good place to start.
Right. Now I'll go
Uh,
do the research based on what I'm reading here, and I'll come to my own conclusion.
yeah.
Plus, these things don't sleep, so you could have theoretically, somebody could have hundreds, thousands, millions of questions lined up, and imagine somebody at internet scale, like one of the big internet companies, building a thing that has a message queue and infinite resources for LLMs, and just basically sits there and looks at the important questions out there, and 24 hours a day. And anytime something's off, or it changes, or it passes some threshold, alert somebody that, hey, maybe you want to pay attention to this. Or, hey, I have absolutely no recent news about this. I really should have some recent news about this. Please send out a news reporter to report on this. Um, I could just imagine this thing, this sort of approach, have a broad positive effect on society potentially.
And one of the areas I'm especially interested in is multi-level scenario planning. Um, so like there's a lot of questions we just don't have time or resources to forecast.
Right.
And even making a tournament on Metaculus becomes unreasonable because you're like, I want to know if I do X, will this happen? And that's like two
Right.
questions. If I do X based on Y, and so you get these trees which become just so large that you're
It's
like,
it's it's too much work for a human to do it. I mean, like, you can guess pieces of it. You can people can work it out, but the amount of work involved is just huge. Yeah, that sounds like an amazing and potentially fruitful kind of branch of research. That so is there anything else you wanted to chat about before we wrap?
I think we covered all the important parts, so that's all good.
All right. So I want to thank you. Really appreciate the fact that you came on here to talk about all of this, and it's just a broad invite. So, if there's anything that comes up in the future that you'd be interested in chatting about, or discussing, I would be thrilled to have you back on the show to discuss that. And I think people will find your library to be incredibly useful for their own endeavors, and I think that's greatly appreciated by the prediction bot community. So thank you.
And thank you for putting this together. I'm super passionate about the AI forecasting area. So
Right. So it's
to
a chance to evangelize to the YouTube community and see if we can
Well,
get more people
that and
on
also
board.
just anyone in the field just like helping to spread it. So like almost independent of me, the fact that you're like doing this to help grow awareness and whatnot, I think is what's important.
Thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed today's show. Please feel free to drop comments in below if you have any questions or something that you want me to cover in the future. And stay tuned for the next one. See you later.